Over here at LifeFood, Long Island, coming to you live. This voice from the furthest reaches of space, deep inside, presenting Dr. David Jubb with the universe inside our mind. As soon as he calls in, we will get the man on the air with the cutting edge across the board. I was going to say natural science and healing, but who knows what will be the topic today. You know, for sure, it will be new, something you've never heard before, because most of this information isn't written anywhere else. For example, we started yesterday on our free consultation promotion. Our next promotion is Irish sea moss, Jubb's Irish sea moss, which in the food preparation industry, or in the art and science of food preparation, there is nothing else like Irish sea moss. And I know that from experience because I make food for a big family here on Long Island, and we use Irish moss in everything, from Italian ices to chips to fresh cream, ice cream, cheesecake, bread, cold cuts. Of course, it's all LifeFood. And if you're just joining us, LifeFood is vegetarian. So we do make cheese, we do make milk, and we make it with LifeFood ingredients, the finest gourmet ingredients such as Irish sea moss. LifeFood has its life force intact. Now, maybe you're asking yourself, what's life force? But we'll start again with that tomorrow, because Dr. Jubb is on the line. Thank you so much for being with us today, and welcome.
Hello?
Dr. Jubb. Hey.
Yes, mate. Hey, are you there?
How you doing? Here.
Hey, Lukey. Great to be with everybody today, mate. Yeah. It's so amazing, you know, because Cloud, she always taught us really to be that power is equivalent to formlessness, and the medicine people really did what they could to teach others really the power of formlessness. And for our listening and viewing today, we could imagine just what awareness is about, and this power of what is eternal and what is absolute, which is empty, which is this absolute space and void, and that being 50% of ourself. And then the other part of ourself are caring, and what beauty exists where somebody has this from their gorgeous stillness in themselves. And this is the power of stillness over having to move around. And it's the power of a beautiful inner silence over versus, 10,000 things to have to say. And it's a value of transparency versus showing this and showing that. But the beautiful child within us, that guides us all the way through life. And no one has to really do anything to be eye-aware. And this simply is existence. And as you are this beautiful child all the way through your life, this is really God. God really doesn't, the concepts of God and things such like this really are not really necessary at all. And as we sort of really are in this eye-awareness, you're in your playfulness and sort of like an unthinkingness, Lukey. And it just simply is a being from existence and just the awareness and joy of existence itself. And so eye-aware really, no eternity is necessary. Nothing really is necessary, and that's a beautiful thing. But eternity just simply is. And formlessness is, and this is more about timelessness, which is maybe unique because people have been talking about being in the present. What's that mean? What is the meaning of that? People have talked about, well, don't be in the past. That's not so good. Or perhaps people have been taken into the past. People taken into the future. And then what is that? Is that this timelessness? But what you could really say that about time is anything which is temporal, meaning you have to have had perception of some movement through space, and then you've locked onto that. That's a concept. And concepts like this really could be considered this fully to be prejudice, actually. And so people are turning their minds, turning themselves on with thinking, and they turn themselves off with their thinking too. And this is really a little bit like being in jail. But so concepts, even good concepts and bad concepts, a concept really is just a prejudice, and that's all. And then why do you have to have a concept? I mean, what is the reason? Because if you're playing, this simply is, and there really isn't any need to have any concept. But concepts occur because people don't trust, you see, or they haven't learned to be trusting in themselves, of themselves, and then all sorts of beliefs could have been created. But a human being really is equivalent, could we say, to passion, for seeking the impossible, really, and that's equivalent to a dogma, and certainly not this living spirit. But what's beneficial really is more in one's nakedness and the nakedness of being, and not any coveredness at all. But what's beneficial really is nakedness, and but who's with what's beneficial? I think that the very things which really is about what's beneficial is equivalent to transparency versus having secrets and not being able, to share. And so we need to have a world where the politic really is more without concept and things. And then for us to be aware that concept and stuff such like this could have caused people just to be complacent and not in existence, but not really existing at all. But what's useful is really where the material of a bowl isn't. What's useful is really where the lodge poles are not, you see. So that's very amazing. But otherwise, restlessness could have existed, you see. And then as that restlessness really can have been, and how beautiful is this restlessness, which is the voice really that you've departed from where you've been and you're coming back more in yourself to reality. But otherwise, all words can cause real deep wishy-washiness and be just sort of something that's in between this beingness within ourselves and being with reality, but we could be with things that have been with things more heady in the past, which that's not so good at all. But words could be really wishy-washy. But people really have to be able to cooperate and start to cooperate, really, and have co-createdness. And in our co-createdness, not to be operated on or to cooperate, but to be co-creative. Co-creativeness is the word, not rather than to be cooperated on. But we care very much to be co-creative where we are, and that means not really having created conflict, but that as you could have created or people created conflict, that's not going to work of itself. But future-orientatedness, you've got people having religion that somebody will come, and they're would-bes, and their religion is more like a would-be tribe or a will-be tribe, and they have great deep future-orientatedness, which the priest and the politician can have easily done to those people to cause them to have an opium not to really be in this timeless now. And then to make it a religion is exciting for people to control others, you see, because they could really just make them wannabes or would-be from a would-be family. And then these are people who really have been brainwashed to be accepted of a check drawn on the bank of heaven, you see. And the priest and the politician generally really is loving, especially because they're the puppets of the bank, to really get it going, that people just are only ever focused on what's out there in the future. And that's very nice because it's just a beautiful opium not to be in this timeless now and have a greater awareness and awaking and be in your existence and existing. And so then you would be just existed instead, which is past. So, but then you've got people who they are the have-beens or the has-beens. And the has-beens are, that's another exciting way for the politician and the priest to be instructed by the banker, the hand above the government, to really easily cause people not to be in this timeless now. And so they're all people who really focus on somebody came. And they're all about somebody came, somebody was in the past, and they worship cold things that are dead, and they're taught that people who are dead love them. And so, somebody who's dead 2,000 years ago loves them, and, somebody who's not here now loves them. And they're kept sort of in that past, and that's very exciting for the banker because they can see how easy it is that could have been adopted by persons unsuspectingly. So, the future-orientatedness in the past and even the present, because you've got the New Age people, and that's very exciting for the banker as well, and the hand above the government, because these are people who are exciting others to do what they can to have expectation and things, because that, and then they'll talk about what the present is, but it's sort of really very nebulous because it's always it's coming or going or something, you know what I mean? And they don't know where it is, the present. But it's applied really as a teaching by the hand above the government just to keep people occupied. And that does occupy people very nicely. And they build bigger houses and they burn more rubber on the road. And they're excited about the soccer scores, you see, and the Grammys and what dress you might be wearing next week. But and these things are very exciting, you see, to people. And it really, really lovely just keeps people from ever being aware. You see, yes. So otherwise, people are sort of with sacrificing things and sacrificing themselves and all that sort of stuff, and then sort of really a bit revenge orientated and things. But being without this really is, as you are, this timeless being. And then I-awareness really is just you equal to existence itself, and that I-awareness really is you equivalent just to God being, and then God is really not necessary as a concept, you see. But as God really is necessary as a concept, people have to talk about sacrificing themselves and being sacrificed and getting revenge, and tell me that that's not so in all these apparent spiritual texts written by humans, really. Nobody could tell me that anything there is written by somebody who's not a human being. That's written all of those works, which is all about sacrifice and revenge and all of that sort of stuff. But none of it really talks about life food. None of it really talks about gender egalitarianism. None of it really talks about infanticide being really, really wrong, and the people who did it were absolutely insane, and stop following people who had a lot of insanity like that. Like if people could actually have just not cared about their children like Christians did, apparently, and therefore people, that's really wrong, you see. You can't sacrifice your son and this sort of thing. That's really wrong, and it really is wrong. And I know people are upset a bit with me because I'm saying it's wrong for parents to own their son's organ. And then some people, members of some religions and things, are really a bit upset with me for saying that, you know. But that, well, you know, it's all right. I just have to say that as a parent, I'm sorry, but it's just Happy Face or Dr. Jubb, and I'm just telling you, stop the idea that you own your son's organ. You do not, and you certainly do not own your daughter's organs either. But here in America, wake up. That's what's going on here. You don't have to go and wake people up about what's happening to women in Africa or something. It's happening to males there too. But probably it's very serving of the banker not to mention, you know, the sexual mutilation that's going on for boys. But that's a sacrifice, you see. That's wrong. I'm sorry. And then doing things like that to create revenge on a gender and have an agenda with the sexes, which they certainly do with males. But we should be really saving males like whales. They die of all the 15 leading causes of death before she does, the world over, and that's a big secret. It shouldn't be anything talked about because males have to be sold, you see. Yeah, but anyway, that's another story. Look, being really is your happiness, Lukey, you know, and this really is your timelessness and mindlessness. And this really is I-aware, all right? And then you really have no concept of God. What's the reason for that, to have a big old image of a Father Christmas up in the sky who invents things and who's listening into you or something, you know? I-awareness really is godliness and is equivalent to existence itself, Lukey. You don't have to have a concept about somebody being created and fool yourself with all that sort of silly thinking. That's not Tao. But you've really got to become knowledgeable, and that's not you as knowledge. And that's not something transferred. I'm really sorry. And that's certainly not anybody's voice on the outside much. This is something inside you. This is the voice of the furthest reaches of outer space inside you. But begin from unknowing and then go to knowing, but you'll never end up with knowing from people's smart-assness of thinking that they know, you know. So you've got the 30 banana a day, the banana benders, and you've got fried sticky fingers in the hospital, and you've got people feeding their children's pig's flesh and fried food, and you've got people their children about has-beens, and that somebody dead loves them, and that people who are living in their warmth and blood, like even me as my son's father, are not considered. That's not considered to be actually anything that's Christ at all. Christ has to be something certainly dead in the past, and people have to go back at least a couple thousand years to sort of recollect it, you see. And that's a very, very nice way to sheepalize, you see. It's very exciting for the banker to have little bits of religion for the moment it could be, knowing that it's just all made up, of course. Most of all made up. And it's certainly the has-beens and the wannabes. The has-beens and the wannabes are past and future sorts of ways to religiously control. And religion is a submission to authority for the sake of certainty. And it works pretty good. That's how the Christian religion came into being. Christian means Caesar. And so some people just only go back to Caesar in their language, just newlyweds, and lots of lovey-dovey and soppy-woppy and niggy-sob and wishy-washy. And these things sort of is the way to go, But anyway, look, yet if you're really beginning with what's certain, then you can really never know. Isn't that amazing? And then everybody is certain that pesticide will work, or everybody is certain that pill in the cupboard will work, and everybody is certain. And a little bit of certainty, 30-something% or something, can make it work. But it's a bit foolish, isn't it, really? You're just going on placebo. But placebo, that's lovely, isn't it? But anyway, look, I think really people should not really be with all that ambition. Lots of people, they have ambition, and it's not a lovely word, really. It actually is a dirty, filthy, disgusting word, actually, because ambition is something which you're not, which you could be, but you're not, and it's about what you're not that you could be. As you could have been with ambition, certainly that's not happiness. But if you've got no ambition, really, this is happiness, whereas and being inhibited, bition, really is frustration. That's equivalent to frustration, Lukey. Is this making sense, Lukey?
Wow, I'm speechless.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying anything new to you, am I? It's speechless. I'm really just talking about things that make sense to you. And why is it making sense to you, Lukey? Or why is it making sense to a 6-year-old, Lukey? Did you go to school to learn this? I certainly didn't, mate. You know what I mean? I reckon a lot of that's just a babysitting, just nothingness, just to make it that the parents would be able to be wage slaves, mate. But only really is returning and arriving, really, and that's not with any beginning or any ending. And then tell me if somebody can find where they begin or where they end, Lukey. That's a great question, because if you're searching for I, you'd have to ask yourself, do you begin somewhere and can you find that? Do you end somewhere? Can you find it? But insanity really is having completely forgotten about happiness. You see? And lots of people, they completely have forgotten about happiness, and they don't even remember moments of happiness. And they are quick, extremely quick, to just jump right on top of what's miserable, as quick as you can, flat strap, and don't even think about it. You know, jump on it so quickly it's unbelievable. You know what I mean? And you have to do it automatically. You have to jump on what's miserable. And that's very, very important, you know, and exciting for the hand above the government to really make a zombie, you see. And it's so exciting because I can see how that works. You just have to do everything you can to turn Indians and other people into sort of Tonto and Hio Silver sort of thing. And into roles, you know, people have to forget that they were happy, you see, because there's a mission, you know what I mean? My God, yeah, got to get that mission. Whoa, more important than you, and your life is not worth the property that you defend. And to have that sort of insanity is very, very important for warmongeringness, you see. And so the four major networks, it's very, very important for the hand above the government to make sure that they have a lot of stuff that just is nonsense and is fear-mongering. And that's very important, that they can have a lot of fear-mongeringness, and that can really very nicely cause people not to really remember happiness, you see. And that just is the formula for miserableness and insanity. So woollyhood is exciting for the investors because it really does create mayhem. And mayhem creates more money, you see. Nobody wants to a solution where you have a system which is a goat jumping on top of another goat. And in a system where you have a goat jumping on top of another goat, you have to learn how to be a pirate, you see. And to be a pirate, you've got to have forgotten happiness, and you have to jump straight on board what's miserable, and then that makes the best soldier, all right? And these things are very important if you're creating a soldier. You have to create absolute miserableness, and in the long run, people will not be able to get along with each other as men and women. But you know, a banker may have to do that to people, to have travesty and to deal with the stock, you know. And that is what Travis stock is about. You have to manufacture reality, very importantly, to create that restlessness, Lukey, you see. And when you manufacture reality, like, you know, make up names of bogeys out there, you don't really know that the bogey is actually the hand above the government that's got you by the short and curlies, you see. And if you manufacture reality like that, like you think about, and, you know, then you blame it on others, you know, you knock something out of the air, you blame it on others, you know, you have a lone Batman and you blame it on the lone Batman, you know what I mean? You really do everything you can to manufacture reality, and you cannot have a family. So, you know, Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse cannot have a family, absolutely not. You can only really have uncles and aunts, and that's very important because the United Nations really wants to do everything they can to take your children away, really, and are the ones who have instituted this social engineering policy, and they're very excited to do it, and they get paid by the hand above the government very nicely, and there is no constitutional money, so it's very, very lovely, you see. You've got just a pool of slaves to commit legalized sin, and please do everything you can to cause people, especially males, to see their lives being put in jeopardy, you see. Their brains need to be punched out of them, and that has to be entertaining, and blood must run, and the more the better, because that really does create the restlessness that's necessary to have the manufactured reality, you see. But if you could really manufacture that reality by having a Superman, oh yeah, gotta have a Superman. Can't be just a man. Absolutely not. That's weak as hell. You have to be super. And I'm going to give you super this, and I'm going to give you super that, and super this, and 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 super that. And I'll go from son you this, and son you that, and son you this, and son you that, to super this, and super that. Woo! Woo! Isn't that beautiful? Right? You there, Luigi?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, food can't be just live food, mate. You know what I mean? Life is a word, is a beautiful word. I don't think super in front of food is intelligent. I think it's as intelligent as the person who made it up, who puts S's on the end of food and wants to pluralize everything to make it bigger, bigger. Bigger is better. Woo-hoo-hoo. Oh, yes, it is. Must have bigger. Must have better. You know what I mean? And super you this and super you that. And all of the super you and super that is tannin you this and tannin you that, you know. And it's like the prosecutor for ACS, Joan Tan Your Ass, her name was Tannenbaum. Isn't it amazing, these people? Joan Tannenbaum, her name is. She's a prosecutor for ACS there. And she lied. She's a lying bee. And she will lie her ass off to take your children away from you. That's what she did to me, mate. She's a Nazi bee and acts like a Nazi bee. And that's what ACS is. It's code for take your children away from you. And let's have no talk about it in the media, all right? But you're really having an authentic life, honest to God, if you're really not caring to sacrifice anything about yourself. I don't want to sacrifice my son. Absolutely not. Not for anyone else. Absolutely not. Sorry about that, but that is not an authentic life. You having an authentic life is you coming from what is mutually beneficial. And it's certainly not beneficial, you know, just to make more money by making people sick and disease. But if in a world where you've got a goat jumping on top of another goat, could you tell me right now that having a larger gross national product that is better and that illness creates more disease and more money spent, apparently that's better. When you don't own the money supply, you're just a puppet, and you're at the bottom of the cockie's cage, and everyone talking as a Republican or as a Democrat is just at the bottom of the cockie's cage, and you can see the state of their mind, mate. And if they've been sheepalized, or really are they are people orientated and populist orientated? If they're populist orientated, they don't want to sacrifice anything, and they're not willing to take a check drawn on the Bank of Heaven. Thank you very much. And the issue really is, let's own our own money supply. Thank you very much, and not allow a private person just to own that. I don't want anyone sacrificed, and I don't certainly not. And I don't want anybody holding up a big balloon saying, "Look, this is a bomb ready to go off." Ha ha ha. But I care very much about people's security and their safety. And and warmongerness is wrong. And these people are our babies, and I care very much about them, and I don't want anybody lighting any fuse. That's wrong. That's a warmonger, and that's a sinful, and the person will just go down in history as being somebody who was a bit insane, you know. But happiness really, Lukey, is equivalent to happiness and having happiness, mate. And happiness really is service, you know, as you can be happy. And to be happy in yourself doesn't mean that you wouldn't feel sad sometimes, or grief, or even anger, or any other emotion. But overall, happiness is equivalent to happiness, and happiness is service itself. But as you really rested, you're achieved in life, all right? But you certainly then will be rested in death. But if you haven't rested and achieved in life, then you will not have rested and achieved in death. As you're rested and achieved in life, and you've achieved rest in life, you'll achieve rest in your death. But don't think that, oh, one day finally I'll be rested because I'll be dead, and you're going to be achieving rest when you're dead. That's a check drawn on the bank of heaven. And that's a serious sheepalized mind. That's just like being brainwashed that you really do know what went on in the First and the Second World War. You know, and if you do not know that that's a Zionist plot, then you do not know what was going on in the First and the Second World War. And that if you do not know that the First and the Second World War was about banking and a banker, then you really don't know yet anything about the First and the Second World War. But you would never necessarily learn how to avoid being drafted so that the old man and old woman could have their coffee whilst they look at the young boys beat it out again with each other. And then the outcome of that, and then they will have paid for that. How cute. Rest will never be achieved for you in life if you do that, and it certainly will never be achieved for you in death either. But rebelliousness, honest to God, is you in your beauty. It's you in your rebelliousness, in your not worrying at all about society. Good. And your innermost care is your livingness then. And this is really how you should be. You should really be more in your livingness most, Lukey. And this is you in your rebelliousness and rebelling against what is on the outside, which completely is made up and fictional and phantom-orientated, that when you shine the light on it, it totally disappears, mate, because it's just like a fear-mongeredness. But when you shine the light on it, honest to God, it disappears. But we should always do what we can to frame things positively, and we should never say things that's negative about others to have created rumour, which is one of the biggest sins that anybody could create, because people don't have much defence against that. And that's the reason why people should never have any blasphemy about another. People should allow others to be, and they should never blaspheme about another. People could have had not necessarily good behaviour, and we can all learn if somebody got hurt, and you could say, gee, I got hurt, but you could put this in terms that we could learn, but that everybody is pristine as the sky, but their behaviour might not be. The behaviour of the banker is atrocious, but the banker is pristine as the sky. The banker is aware also that, of course, the religions are all made up, you know, and they'd love for a non-religious state to fight off against a religious state and all this sort of thing. And they created a state that was not religious, and then they've created a state that is religious, and then they wanted to slowly disband the state that is religious and have the state which is not religious sort of take over. But these are part of this person's plantation. They own the whole show, except for 4 or 5 countries which has to have a war, apparently, so that the banking can be taken over there as well. Happiness really is you in your happiness, and happiness really is equivalent to service. But rebelliousness really is you not really having any worry whatsoever about society, because society could be just a big pig, mate, like ACS in New York City. That's the biggest pigsty and a slaughterhouse. And then the people who work in it, they know it's a slaughterhouse. They're the biggest drongos and people walking around like moonstruck cows I've ever seen in my life, mate. Okay, I've been all over the world, and except for places like Sweden where people really are acting like drongos and they are beautiful people, gorgeous, but that's the place which has the No Mind Festival. So how's that, eh? But where you have something missing, you could really have to be the most yourself, really. You know, like my son, he's had to be the most himself without his dad. And then people have done everything they can to make him the means to get to some end themselves. And how wicked are they, you know what I mean? And that's still ongoing right now. But to be true really could not be equivalent to you being a gentleman and a lady. Your gentleman and your lady could just have you just wiped out because you're not a survivalist. You've got to be true, I'm telling you. And that is really you more in your authentic self and not going around with some idea of a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, sacrifice myself, and that people's property is going to be worth far more than my life. That is not you living an authentic life, all right? It really is living more deeply is tremendous. And the deepest people that I really know, this really is tremendous, mate. And this can be very far away deep inside, I'm telling you, all right? And then you live deeply, very tremendously right here in your beingness with people, but that I could ever notice you have a very, very deep far awayness inside yourself. But you can really choose what's new. Yep, why not? Because don't accept all the bloody old stuff. God help us. Get rid of all that old stuff. I'd burn it. It just is old. Get rid of it. Choose what's new, mate, and really choose what's new over what's old in your head. Don't accept the old anymore. You know what I mean? Just don't accept it. Don't accept what the four major channels run. Just their business. But you don't have to have any degree. You don't have to have any steps, mate, if you're listening, all right? You just have to have this beautiful quantum leap with me and be in this more unknowingness and this timelessness, this formlessness, and have mastery where most people have no footing whatsoever. Be all one, mate. That's what the word alone means. Be powerful in your aloneness, mate. And this is you as your cat, and this is you in your mystery. Your presentness, timelessness is arrived, and then people arrive afterward. You're already here. This is all one. That means alone. And this is equivalent to what is essential, and that is not you being lonely, where sickness is and you can have been lonely, I definitely do have a piece of me which is lonely, and that I care very much for something to be righted which is not right. And for me, that's my boy having been not allowed to have his daddy. And of course, Americans have to do everything they can to make sure their boy doesn't